Hi everyone, my name is Lucian. Most of you know me from Twitter as Triangle Investor, and today I'm pleased to have Daniel Major in my show. He's the CEO of GoviEx Uranium Exploration and Development Company with two African projects. Mr. Major, welcome to my show.
Thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Busy month for you. A lot of traveling, attending conferences. You recently came back from Zambia, and you will travel to Niger soon, right?
That's right. Have to go to the projects. Yeah, and it also helps me, speak with government. And in the case of Zambia, I haven't been there for a while because of COVID, etc. But it was to get on the ground and get my head around the logistics issues, etc. And get the project there ready for the feasibility study work.
Great. Any vacation plans soon?
Yes, in August.
In August, okay. But
Finally
not in Africa.
Yeah, I'm actually going to Kruger, taking my wife on a honeymoon after almost 30 years of wet marriage.
Good for you. Good for you. Great. For those who do not know about you, can you give us a brief introduction of who are you and what's your background and how did you become a GoviEx CEO?
Yeah, so I'm a mining engineer by trade. I went to the Camborne School of Mines here in the UK. I went straight from university to become a shift supervisor for Rio Tinto at the Rossing uranium mine when it was in Southwest Africa. Stayed there until the uranium price went down to $8 a pound. Started up the first open pit platinum mine for Anglo American, which is still their super pit over in South Africa. Went from there to run my own consultancy company for a while. Then I got married and realized that being a consultant, trying to have a family at the same time was quite difficult. So went to become a mining analyst. I was a rated mining analyst for 7 years and then actually wanted to get back in the industry. So I went to work in Russia for Basic Element, a gentleman by the name of Oleg Deripaska. I did that from 2004 to 2008 with a crash of the Russian debt default, had to come out. Went to South America to do some exploration, then gold mining in Quebec, underground gold mining. And now 2012, I came and became the CEO for GoviEx and have driven the company since then.
Great background. Let's go through uranium thesis at the macro level. What do you see today that changed the thesis compared to thesis like 5 years ago?
Oh, easy question to start with. Basically, the geopolitics of nuclear is like, I have never seen it like this. We are literally back to the nuclear renaissance. I mean, that's the phrase being used, and I think absolutely true. If you look at where we were even 2 years ago, it was questionable whether people would accept the technology. Everybody was green energy, renewables and wind was all that was counted. Nuclear wasn't. And it's not just political change. It's at the grassroots level. You look at a lot of the questions put out to the public. I mean, Germany, the people in Germany generally vote nuclear. The politicians are anti. Scotland's another one. There was one recently where Scotland, the people want 55% of the people want nuclear energy. The politicians don't. You look at Japan and the turnaround there. Even in Switzerland, Sweden, all around the world, people are getting to the fact that to have clean energy, you have to have that. I think the other thing that's changed within that is government has now got so on board that they're backing the small modular reactors. So before we had the older technology, and now we've got the small modular reactor technology coming on, and governments around the world have realized this may be the way they get nuclear into their story as well. Look at the emphasis in Europe, particularly. Where a lot of governments are pushing towards it, and even in the continent where I operate, Africa. So I think that, for me, is the biggest single change. We've always had a supply deficit for a long, long time.
Yeah.
We had to do inventory, and that supply deficit's getting worse, not better. But that really is the single biggest change that's happened, is the complete and utter turnaround on sentiment towards our industry.
Yeah, you got that right. Like I said before, you're attending a lot of conferences. What are you hearing and what do you see there? What is the feedback from utilities, fuel buyers, brokers about demand supply story? And especially, what do they see about uranium price in the next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I think that feeds very much. I was at the WNFC conference in The Hague not so long ago, and it was the opening ceremony is always the most interesting one on these conferences. You kind of get the big heads of the WNA, the INEA, a couple of others. And previously, the message was always like, what are we going to do in this industry? How are we going to survive? Now it's how are we going to deliver the number of nuclear reactors that are now required? How do we keep up with the demand? That's the message now on the floor at these conferences. At the top level, the underlining message that's coming across, guys, we've got to work harder to deliver everything that's requested. How do we smooth things to make it go faster? So, it just reiterates the bullish comment. If you listen to the utilities, they're very much along those lines. It's like, everything's great going forward. You look at North American utilities as well, where they're actively pursuing expansion on their nuclear material, particularly someone like a TVA with this SMR strategy, Constellation as well. So that's feeding through totally into the utilities. When you talk to them about the supply demand fundamentals, the first issue that currently, as you can understand, comes to mind is, the impact of Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Of course.
And what is that doing to their supply side, and how are they responding to it? And that has really preoccupied them for a year. Some of them have reacted very quickly, particularly the European ones who've just completely self-sanctioned themselves off. And some of them had to pay the price to do it, but have done it. That continues to bug a lot of the US guys who are making that switch as quickly as they can, as they see the expectation of law coming through that will drive them. There is a lot of conversation about, okay, prices are going to have to go up. And I think, it'll be interesting to see what the 2023 World Nuclear Association supply demand report comes out. I think you're going to see it's a lot more bullish than the 1-2 years ago, with a much higher growth rate, but no expansion on the demand side. And so, we talk about where we are with our project, and they're going, guys, the price is moving towards you very quickly. We explained where we are, etc., from a project point of view, on offtake discussions. So, yeah, they're all expecting prices to go higher across the board. I think even if you looked at the UXC surveys as well, they're showing that trend as well, that it's moving up all of the time. And then you just look at the market. In the forward curve is just getting steeper all the time.
How about spot price? What do you think? How do you think the price will perform for the remainder of the year?
Oh, up, up. Right, straightforward up. Yeah, I think a lot of people would like to see it go faster. I mean, we all would. It would just make life so much easier if it would going up. But it's a quiet market still. It's not got a lot of people trading in it. The volumes are small, but small volumes are also moving the market when it does happen. Yeah. I mean, and everyone was expecting Sprott to do it all, but no, you're now seeing the price move without Sprott being around in the market. I think it reverts back to that previous comment about Russia. A lot of the utilities have been in the EUP market. Even some of the bigger ones we were talking to previously were like, 2026, we need uranium. It's like, well, we don't need uranium in 2026 now. Because we've got an EUP contract. Yeah. Like, well, okay, great. So, but where's the U308 coming from for the EUP contract? Yeah. Well, that's the enricher's problem now. so you've seen this trade, and now you're going to start seeing that bit feed into the other side, where the enrichers are now coming out on those RFPs to feed in material that's required. So it's still going to trend up. And I think the other important thing is that, the floors are just settling in higher and higher all the time going forward. So yeah, up is up. Simple answer is up.
Yeah. We have a uranium market that consumes around 190 million pounds of uranium per annum and produces around 130, right? Something like that. That is a 60 million pound gap. How do you see that deficit gap in the next 10 years?
In the next 10 years.
Yeah, I know it's a big number, but
no. I mean, it's actually a very interesting question, because I think this is the one that causes the utilities a bit of a confusion. because, you know, if the price goes up, then obviously new projects will come on. So if you looked at any of the forecasts out there, they're currently kind of tight still. What they would call, you know, UxC said, oh, it can be filled by inventory. But then they point out there's not a lot of inventory. So it's like, well, okay, so there's this inventory fill, but it's not. And a lot of that secondary material was coming out of Russia, which can't come out of Russia anymore. So
Yes.
I don't see how we keep filling that gap. And the reason it's interesting as well is that up till 2030, they kind of keep this tightening up. After 2030, the supply and demand gap just does this and just gets wider and wider, predominantly because we haven't had a new project come on stream really for a long time.
Yeah.
Cameco Cigar Lake is, you know, about that time reaches the end of its phase 1, and they've got to figure out what to do with phase 2. Somaïr sometime in the 2030s will shut down next door to us as well. And then if you look at the Kazatomprom forward curve on their production, it completely collapses after 2030. So unless they're putting new production in which they haven't announced yet, there is a complete collapse in supply coming forward. Now, we know projects will appear to fill some of that, but yeah, after that, it becomes quite difficult.
Do you think that SMRs will play a big role in uranium and nuclear energy storage?
Yes. Will they play a big part of the story in total volume? No, I don't think they will, because the bigger reactors are so big. But they will play a big psychological demand issue. That people will become comfortable with small 10, 20, 300 meg reactors and get more used to them, and then become more comfortable with nuclear being around, rather than the big reactors, which obviously pressurize vessels. So I think that is a key part for me, is the psychological impact of SMRs.
Okay. Let's discuss company developments, but first, please tell me, how is the political and security situation in Niger and at this moment?
Look, you know, we've been there for a very long time and been more than comfortable operating there. Despite what's going on in other jurisdictions, Niger stands out as a beacon of stability, and continues to be. I mean, yes, things come across the border. Very difficult not to, but even then, this year it seems to be getting a lot calmer in around those border regions. I keep a regular watch for those kind of issues to understand it for our own risk, but certainly Niger is standing out. It's got a lot of support by the European Union and the US as well, which are putting financial support to it as well as military support. So yeah, going fine. And let me just point out with Zambia, I mean, we've seen a radical change in Zambia as well after the last government, which was very nationalistic on its mining, you know, state capture. But now the new government there is very commercial, is really wants to expand copper production. And that has a knock-on effect, because you've got to put more power in, you've got to put better logistics in. That affects all mining in the country as well. So we're seeing a real turnaround for Zambia as well.
Okay. Government has 20% stake in your project. How would you describe your relations with the government? How often do you meet with people from the government and from the local community?
Oh gosh, let's break that into three components there, because we actually have a board meeting three times a year annually. For Camima. So representatives of the government are on the board from the Ministry of Mines and the Ministry of Finance. I meet with the ministers whenever I go to Niger. So this time I'm going down there, the plan will be to meet with the Minister of Mines, the President, and the Minister of Finance. I actually met with the President when he was up here for the coronation of our king, as well. So whenever possible, go in Niger particularly to meet with the ministries. And just give them an update of where we are. The same with Zambia. More difficult in Zambia because the scale of the country is just so much bigger, but we meet with the ministries. And the other important thing before I come on to the last part is, you know, we obviously have local teams on the ground, and their job is to liaise with the ministries all of the time. And you know, it's their projects in their countries, and I like them to engage fully with the ministries eternally. With the communities, it's a full-on process. We have internally a bi-weekly call with our community relations guys to want to know what's going on. Every meeting that they have with the communities is recorded, minuted, who was there, what was the sentiment from that meeting. We've done a lot with the communities, as you'll probably see from our website, all sorts of different things, and we can always come back on that. But yeah, no, I mean, we've committed to 100% local employment since 2009. The adult education, I'll raise it now, is the adult education program we announced on Monday was all about that as well, whereby, in our view, to be successful, Mutanga has to employ from the people that will be most affected by the project arriving on their doorstep. But we realized that 70% of that adult population did not have an education in English at all, and actually probably predominantly spoke Tonga. So we said, well, we've got the time. Let's make sure they get up to an education level, numeracy and literacy, that we can train them to work on the mine. So, that's how close we are to our communities, is trying to understand how we can work with them and better them in all ways. And that works because you don't need a mine camp. People live in their houses. They come to work from their own houses. The community goes around and you get that responsible, sustainable mining approach.
Okay. Can you give me a fresh update on Maduela and maybe explain to new potential investors when is this project going to production? Details about project financing, and what price of uranium do you need to contract to make this project work?
Yeah, absolutely. So Maduela, for those who don't know, is a mine permitted project. So we've got the biggest hurdle out of the way. Yeah. We completed its feasibility study last year. The total focus at the moment is on the debt financing. We're dealing with that first, and then as part of that, we'll deal with the offtake, and then as part of that, at the end, we'll deal with the equity portion, the revised. Because at least when we go looking for the equity, we have the debt lined up, subject to getting the equity at the end. We put out teasers at the end of the last year. We got 20 different investing groups come in and say, yeah, we'll look at the debt financing. Those guys were then allowed into the data room, where they saw all of the information that we had for the feasibility study, including the models. Yeah. We're currently honing that down to a smaller group that are providing their letters of interest. So where we are at the moment, we have 2 commercial banks in Europe that have signed up LOIs. We have an export credit agency that signed up as a lender. We have a couple of export credit agencies that signed up as insurers. They're important because they provide up to 90% commercial risk insurance on the project. So, and we were almost there at the full package, but I need one DFI to come in. The indication from the DFI is positive, but I don't have their letter of interest yet. They are a government entity, so they move at their own speed. So a little frustration from my side, because I can't make a government go any faster than a government will go. Yeah. But at least, the feedback from them is it's not a yes-no conversation. It's a yes conversation. We just need to figure out what the package is. And once I feel that package is big enough to cover the whole debt, that's when we go to the next stage, which is the due diligence, etc. That's also the point that, we've not been aggressive on offtake negotiating, because I would want to show that I've got a debt package that's sitting here. And then we can tell them exactly who it is. There are some ECAs that we've not dealt with yet, because they are the offtake ECAs, particularly in Europe, who can come in and provide insurance. So a lot of work just sitting on that. Now, that's probably going to take, 9 months once we get that LOIs to pull everything together. Hopefully those offtake contracts come in with that at the same time, and that will depend on the momentum of the market. Once we have the funding, it's 2 years of construction. So, in 2026, GoviEx at Maduela should be a producer of uranium from there.
That's great. What about numbers? What are the what are the numbers for all sustaining costs for the project, and what price of uranium do you need to contract to make this project work?
On the feasibility study, we use a $65 price. and the cash cost on that was $28 a pound. The one thing I would caveat on that is we priced it in May of 2022, which is like the peak of the inflation cycle.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm already seeing a lot of the numbers that we put in there are lower than what we did. In fact, I've had a couple of construction companies come back to us on supplies and say, hey guys, when you're ready, by the way, the shipping costs are down substantially on what we put in our proposals. So we can probably give you a better deal than we gave you previously.
That's great news.
Which is good news. And then the other one as well is we designed everything using Cotonou as the import port. Things have improved going north through Algeria, and certainly talking to a local transport company the other day, they intimated transport going into the Mediterranean is about 50% the cost of getting down to Cotonou. So again, I think there is a lot of benefits sitting in front of us that we can leverage onto those costs and make sure we come in under the budget that we targeted. So there's good news there on that side. So yeah, we've used $65 as our benchmark at the moment. That's what we've been putting out there for RFPs, and while we've not won anything yet on them, the feedback from the utilities is, guys, it's getting really close to that number. So expect it. And interestingly, I heard Grant Isaacs from Cameco on the other day talking about their collar position, which is 55 to 75, which just happens to have 65 in the middle of it. So again, it gives me comfort that's a number that's very doable.
Yeah. Daniel, any plans to expand the resources on Maduela before starting production?
No, not before starting. There are some little bits and pieces there, but unfortunately they're on the RLR license and MAD4 license, which are not permitted. And really it doesn't need to. And I think this is one of the issues as well with Maduela that people don't really give us credit for. If you look at the majority of our peers, all of their projects are under 10 years of life, which is great for your net present value. But Maduela happens to be 20 years of life, and it can actually expand beyond that, even with the known resources. So, for example, when we mined out the Miriam open pit, you can actually portal straight out the bottom of it, and there's 10 million pounds of uranium next to Miriam and underground resources that we've not included in the plan. So that's another 4 years of production just sitting there right next to the open pit. So we have the other licenses, exploration licenses, and either on our books or under application with agreements with the government for them. So yeah, plenty of time. But it was kind of, our target is all about getting Maduela going first, and then going back onto the drills.
If I got this right, it can be a 30-year mine life.
Oh, easy.
It's not impossible.
No, not impossible at all.
Yeah.
I mean, we can see even up at at the M&M deposit, it's a kind of a river and it steps down. And so you've got about 7 kilometers of ore body. And then there's another section of the paleo channel just sitting there on the bottom. And we can see where it goes with the radon survey that we did. So yes, I mean, there's lots of targets around that mine. And once you get it going, you're drilling to feed the mill. You're not drilling to run a project. You're literally drilling to feed the mill.
How about your relations with companies operating in Niger, Orano, Global Atomic, Myriad Uranium? Are you in contact with them?
Oh, look, you are always in contact with your peers, just to kind of, share experience if nothing else. And there aren't that many of us either. So you kind of, when the government goes through discussions on law change, etc., you're sharing your experience, because you don't want one guy saying, well, I want this for me, and everybody else is affected differently. So you always are talking. I mean, obviously with Global Atomic, they're ahead of us as well. A lot of their debt packaging is looking very similar to our debt packaging. In fact, the lawyers they're using, I discovered the other day, are the same lawyers that we use. So, a lot of their experience we'll be able to pick up off as we go to the next stage as well. So, no, always talk to them. There's always ideas.
Have you ever considered to stake more land?
No.
Adjacent to your properties?
We have more than enough land. Okay. But I got almost too much land.
Okay.
And also the law has changed recently. You're actually only allowed to hold 3 exploration licenses.
Okay.
So yeah, we have those already, so no need to. And don't forget, licenses here are really big. I mean, when we started with Mad 1, 2, 3, 4 and Anamili, there were 25-kilometer by 25-kilometer blocks. I mean, these are big pieces of ground.
Yeah. Great, Daniel. Let's talk about Mutanga. We already discussed the political and security situation. Give us a fresh overview and update for that project.
Yeah, so Mutanga, last couple of years, the focus has been infill drilling at Dibwe East. Dibwe East was added by Denison after they got the mining permit, but it became almost 50% of the total resource there, but it was all in inferred. So we have drilled it. It's taken a bit longer to get the MRE out than I was hoping, and it had nothing to do with the geology. It actually had to do with the survey. We had no topographical model for it. It's thick jungle around there, so, and it's in the middle of kind of nowhere down there. So we ran a LiDAR survey, but unfortunately the benchmarks didn't match, so we had to go back and resurvey in to get the LiDAR to work. And the LiDAR gives you a topographical model, accurate topographical model, which of course you need to design a mine. So the MRE is really close. It should be out very soon. And that means now we can move on to the feasibility study stage of this project. So, you know, that's where we are at the moment, is getting that. We've been doing metallurgical test work with the Copperbelt University in Zambia, again, you know, trying to keep with local procurers as well. And then we recently appointed Okwezi, SRK and SGS to run the feasibility study for us. So probably, you know, just over a year to get that job done.
Let's talk numbers for Mutanga also. What are the all-in sustaining costs for that project, and what price of uranium do you need for this one?
Yeah, well, I can't answer that one totally because, of course, I haven't got the feasibility study in front of me.
Yeah, I know.
But if you looked at the previous one, it was a capital at 120, producing £2.5 million per annum for 11 years. Its cash cost was $31 a pound. We used $58 on that one and had a 25% IRR. So, you know, interestingly, we used a 9% royalty, and the royalty rate has dropped to 5% now on that project as well. So, you know, I think we're obviously going to see some inflation, but I don't, you know, given where things have gone, particularly oil price, etc., don't see it being as high as I would have done if I was doing it last year. We probably see some capital increase because I might revert from being a contract miner back to an owner operator. I tend to find it's cheaper that way, ultimately. So we'll wait and see. But, you know, when I look at putting a $65 price on, that's going to more than offset any inflationary impact on that project. So, you know, I did a quick and dirty the other day. I kind of upped everything by 20%, changed the royalty, changed the price, and you come in at almost $200 million MPV on it. So yeah, it's well underpinned.
Okay, is government also taking a percentage here?
No, there's no obligations either with the government to do that, and in fact, the current government kind of is backing away from that rather than going the other way around. And you know, we've had conversations, obviously, with ZCCM in the past, you know, to see if there was any interest. They were very focused on copper at the time and gold now. But, you know, they do want to see our project up and running. Zambia is one of the countries that, you know, wants to go nuclear in Africa. And we're actually one of the few big projects in Shabonga, the southern portion, predominantly agricultural or subsistence farming. So, you know, a project like ours would make a really big difference in the region.
Do you find difficult to handle and advance 2 projects at the same time? Have you considered to spin out maybe Mutanga because Maduela is your flagship project, or do some joint venture partner for that project?
I think the answer to that in simple terms, yes, we do consider it. But, you know, it has to be the right deal if we do it. I mean, it's not difficult from my time and the team's time because we have 2 different teams. But you know, it obviously puts pressure on the cash flows that we have. We run it as tight as we can on everything. And as you and I were talking before, we get a lot done with our money. I mean, last year I completed a feasibility study, did a whole bunch of infill drilling, and paid off the debt to the government, and cleared our balance sheet completely. So, we get a lot done with the money we have, and really stretch it as far as we can. But, recognize, particularly this horrible market that's out there at the moment. I mean, the uranium market's looking good, but the overall equity market is looking horrible. But yeah, I mean, we obviously look at these things, but it has to be the right deal for everybody, for us to consider it.
Okay. I would like to touch on the share price. I think yesterday it was 12.5 cents. That is sub 90 million market cap. Some Athabasca explorers are trading more than that. How do you explain that? Why is Mr. Market not paying attention to your company? Is your recent raise part of the answer?
I do not know is the answer. I mean, yes, we get criticized for dilution, but at the end of the day, we don't use a lot of money compared to a lot of projects that are out there. We are advancing 2 projects as well, and to a very extreme end of their development. So, we're just not getting value for the work that we're doing. And I don't think anyone I have seen has ever been able to criticize us for the technical work, the development of our projects, and the advancement of those projects. I think it's inappropriate value that's sitting out there. And, I think if we can show the financeability of Maduela, that should change the market's appreciation of where our projects are. Because we are that close with Maduela on its debt side, at least, to show that it can be done.
Okay, can you give me an update about the sale of Alea project in Mali? At what stage is that deal? Transaction closing soon?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're waiting for Africa Energy Metals to close. I mean, they've got to raise some money. If you look at what their news flow is, I don't think that's probably going to happen. But it was an opportunity for us. We've tried it. It's still there.
Okay.
We continue to hold on to the project, and relook at our strategy on that project. Our focus continues to be Maduela and Mutanga. So it's got to be a strategy that looks at reducing any impact of that project, and continue to focus on the 2 big drivers. I mean, really, from a value point of view, that's where it is in GoviEx.
Okay. Can you tell me who are the people behind GoviEx story, and how are they involved within day-to-day operations?
Well, obviously the board. I mean, if you look at our board, it's a super powerful board. Across, you got Dave Cates, Ben Wallace-Sall, who's just a machine out there, Eric Kraft, Govin, and the Friedlands. On a day-to-day, no, I run the business. That's what it is. They're really helpful on strategic stuff, though. So, when I'm looking for contacts, looking for engagement, outside, that's where our board is really useful. Someone like Salma as well has really good contacts across West Africa. So, in fact, she's coming with me to Niger next time to meet with the government, because she hasn't, but she lives in Côte d'Ivoire. So, having a board like that is really helpful. And they are all willing to, put the time in for the company when needed.
Do you expect to expand the board soon?
I don't know. I don't expect us to get any bigger at any time soon. I mean, we've got 7 people already on the board. It doesn't need to be any bigger.
Okay. Before I let you go, I have a format in my interviews with 10 quick questions for my guests. They are called B&B questions: bullish, neutral, or bearish. I say some commodity or stock, and you say bullish, bearish, or neutral. Ready?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Lithium.
Bullish.
Platinum.
Neutral.
Copper.
Bullish.
Okay. Gold.
Bearish.
Oh. Silver.
I'm bullish.
Bullish. Okay, that's very interesting. Oil.
Neutral.
Dollar. US dollar.
Yeah, US dollar. I would have to be bearish from here.
Same here. Euro.
Europe. I voted Brexit, so bear.
How about real estate?
Real estate. Where?
Globally.
Global, I think yeah, you can't really. Everywhere's different.
Yeah. Okay, UK region.
UK. I would have said neutral. Neutral to, but yeah, I don't see a market crash here in real estate, but I don't see it rising either.
How about world economy?
Yeah.
Okay, then your final question. How can investors reach out to you?
Come through info@GoviEx. I have two people who watch it all the time and send me the emails through. So that's the best way to do it.
Daniel, thank you very much for this interview. It was my pleasure to host you, and I wish you good luck with company projects and your personal life, of course.
Thank you very much. And I love the last questions.
Thank you very much.